My name is Zeke Draker. I am a direct descendant of the Draker clan. This renowned dragon slayer family is the most prestigious knightly family on the continent, a family that even the Emperor couldn't touch. In other words, anyone who can't become a knight in this family is treated like trash. That was me. The first failure to awaken in the Draker clan's direct bloodline. I was the only one who failed to awaken my aura, a rite of passage for the Draker bloodline. And I was a healer class, something completely unrelated to dragon slayers. A healer class in a dragon slayer family's direct bloodline. It sounds like a bad joke, but it's an undeniable fact. Despite being a direct descendant, I was treated like trash in the family for failing to awaken my aura. As a result, I was expelled from the clan's academy, which all Draker descendants had to graduate from, at the age of 15. To survive and become stronger, I wandered the continent and did everything I could. A certain sage once said, if you only pursue strength, you will have nothing left in the end. That's a load of bullshit. It's a million times better to have strength than not. It's the truth of the world that those without strength are eventually trampled on and have their precious things taken away by those with strength. That's why I struggled to overcome my limits and become stronger. If it weren't for those damn Imperial hounds, I could have become the strongest on the continent. Because I was the first to obtain the ancient artifact that the Emperor was desperately searching for. I didn't know exactly what it was, but it must have been something extraordinary since that Emperor, obsessed with conquering the continent, was looking for it. I went through hell in the ice mountains, which were so cold they could freeze you to the bone, to find the artifact. But as soon as I came out of the dungeon, those Imperial hounds spread a dragnet and chased after me. After running for over a week, I was finally caught right in front of the ice wall. They cut off both my arms and snickered as they watched me writhing. Then they took out a coin to decide who would kill me. I gritted my teeth, crawled on the ground, grabbed my severed right arm, and used healing. While the knight who cut off my arm was distracted by the coin tossed in the air, I snuck up behind him and cut his throat. He must have never expected me to reattach my severed arm and get up in that situation. I defeated all the hounds, but I wasn't unscathed either. My stomach and back were riddled with swords. This wasn't something even the master of healing could heal. I picked up the dark dragon statue that had fallen in the snow with difficulty. Unable to even unravel the secrets hidden within the ancient artifact, I leaned against the cold ice wall and waited for my painful death. Despite pursuing strength all my life, I couldn't obtain the power I truly desired. Damn it. Just as I was about to breathe my last, strange letters appeared before my eyes. A strong will awakens the ancient power. The soul of the elder dragon is imprinted on the soul of the one with the will. At first, I thought it was a load of nonsense. The system detects danger to the awakened. Emergency measures are activated. Do you agree? I'm dying here, who cares about emergency measures? Do you agree? Yes, damn it. I agree. Wong. Awaken agreement confirmed. The irreversible promised power is activated. Countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. And when I opened my eyes, I was like this. Zeke looked at his reflection in the mirror. The face covered in scars and burns was gone, replaced by a handsome young man with black hair, black eyes, pale skin, and delicate features. Zeke, who had been in his 30s, had returned to the age of 10, at most. He looked around. I thought it looked familiar. It was the room he used as a cradle when he was young. Did I really go back in time? Zeke looked down at his body. He still couldn't forget the feeling of the swords deeply embedded in his stomach. He looked at his hands and feet. Were my hands always this small? Above all, there were almost no wounds on his hands. He had been wandering all over the continent, and there wasn't a single part of his body without scars. Zeke racked his brains. What in the world happened? Suddenly, Zeke remembered the voice he heard in his fading consciousness just before he died. What did it say? Emergency measure. Promised power? It was difficult to grasp its meaning. And to think I'm back in this crazy family. Zeke had run away from the Draker clan after being expelled from the academy when he turned 15. The Dragon Slayer family was founded by the descendants of Terrakin Draker, who saved the continent by beheading the evil dragon Bahamut 1,000 years ago. It was one of the 3 transcendent clans on the continent, where all members were blessed with aura and became aura users. Zeke was born as a direct descendant of that Draker clan. They call it a Dragon Slayer family, but this is just a crazy place. Zeke shuddered, remembering what he had experienced here in the past. He couldn't understand why he was back in his terrible past. Sigh. I don't understand what's going on. It was then. Administration system reactivating. Confirming the awakened soul level. Confirmed 100% soul match. The soul of the Elder Dragon is completely fused with the soul of the Chosen Awakened. Acquiring partial authority of the system. Status window access activated. What's this? Letters appeared before my eyes. Opening status window. Suddenly, translucent letters appeared before Zeke's eyes. Low-rank administrator status window. Name, Zeke Draker. Class, Healer, Rare. Title, Blessed by the Ancient Dragon. Class skills, Healing / Composed Mind / Health Regeneration / Heightened Senses. Active skills, Precise Stab, E rank, Beginner, / Mutilate, E rank, Beginner, / Critical Strike, D rank, Beginner. Draconian skills, unavailable 10 karma points required to unlock. Current karma points held, 0. Zeke examined the letters that appeared before his eyes. He tried to touch them with his hand, but they couldn't be touched. It seemed like a magically created image rather than something real. He read the contents of the status window. Healer class? He recalled the ancient knowledge he had learned from his master long ago. His master had said that the ancients divided classes according to their potential and developed techniques accordingly. Judging by the class and skills, it seems to be related to that ancient artifact. Zeke looked at the words healing in the class skills section and shouted in disbelief. Healing. His hand was instantly enveloped in a white light. Zeke was startled. I've already awakened my ability? In his previous life, he hadn't awakened his healing ability until he was over 20. Seeing that he could still use healing, Zeke realized that his abilities from his previous life remained. If I've awakened healing, then maybe. Zeke closed his eyes and concentrated, and mana stirred near his solar plexus. Zeke's eyes shot open. My ether hall is open. The secret Dragon Slayer technique of the Draker family could only be learned after awakening one's aura and opening the lower dantian. Zeke, who couldn't awaken his aura, couldn't open his lower dantian and learn the true Dragon Slayer technique. Despite having the talent of a healer but unable to handle aura, Zeke learned how to open his ether hall from his master and handle mana. I almost died learning this. Zeke moved his body, manipulating mana. Whoosh! He swayed, losing his balance. His young body wasn't used to moving like he did in the past. It'll get better with practice. At least the situation was much more advantageous than in his previous life. He turned his attention back to the status window. Skills. What are these? Zeke pressed his finger on Composed Mind. The page turned, and new letters appeared. Skill description. Composed Mind, keeps the user's mind calm and unshaken in any situation. Zeke tilted his head. So I have this skill besides healing. Since the concept of classes and skills wasn't used in the present era, he didn't know what skills he had. Is it thanks to the Composed Mind skill that my mind isn't that affected despite going through this absurd situation? Even Zeke himself thought he was quite calm considering he had died horribly and then regressed. He pressed the other skills as well. Class skills. Healing, creates a healing light that restores wounds. Composed Mind, keeps the user's mind calm and unshaken in any situation. Health Regeneration, replenishes lost health and reduces fatigue. Heightened Senses, momentarily focuses the senses and increases cognitive speed. After reading through the skills he possessed, Zeke tried using Heightened Senses. He felt his senses sharpen as if time had slowed down. He nodded. This sensation is familiar. Maybe I used it unconsciously during battle. After checking his class skills, Zeke pressed Active Skills. Active Skills. Precise Stab, E rank allows for more accurate strikes at the enemy's vital points, increasing lethality. Mutilate, E rank allows for rapid slashing attacks while disrupting the enemy's vision. Critical Strike, D rank allows for a critical attack on the enemy. However, failure can result in a counterattack. Zeke pondered as he looked at the active skills. Finishing moves? Secret techniques? Something like that? After checking the active skills, Zeke pressed Draconian skills at the bottom. But instead of the skill description, a message popped up. Draconian skills are unavailable. 10 karma points are required to view these skills. Karma points? It was a term he had never heard before. He had never even heard it from his master, who was quite knowledgeable about ancient knowledge. Just as he was about to press for more information about karma points. Knock, knock. Someone knocked. As Zeke unconsciously thought about turning off the status window, the letters before his eyes disappeared. Come in. At Zeke's permission, the door opened, and someone entered. A well-built old man with white, slicked-back hair, a neatly trimmed beard, and a monocle. Zeke was startled. Decker? Decker was a servant sent from the main Draker household. He spoke to Zeke with a sharp glint in his eyes. You're still not ready. What are you thinking, young master? Zeke's body instinctively recoiled at Decker's sharp voice. In the past, Zeke had felt an unconscious fear of Decker. But it was different now. He wasn't an ordinary child anymore. Something appeared before Zeke's eyes. Composed mind skill used. As Zeke thought, it seemed like the skills were being used automatically depending on the situation. Zeke, having regained his composure, looked at Decker and said, Ready? What are you talking about? Decker adjusted his monocle and said, Don't tell me you've forgotten about the evaluation test today. Zeke was startled by Decker's words. Evaluation test. Decker looked at Zeke and said, You need to hurry and get ready. You'll lose points if you're late for the evaluation test. Then Zeke looked up and asked Decker. Decker, what's the date today? No, what year, month, and day is it? Decker stared intently at Zeke for a moment, then adjusted his monocle again and said in a dry voice. It's October 14th, 10:35. Zeke calculated the date. 10:35. I died in 10:55, so it's exactly 20 years ago. I'm 12 years old. And if it's October 14th? Zeke, having organized his thoughts, looked at Decker and said. Right. They always held the year-end evaluation in the cradle around this time. Decker looked down at Zeke and said. As I said before, it will be difficult to survive in the Draker clan if you continue to avoid reality like this, young master. Although his voice was devoid of emotion, it contained sincerity. Then Zeke looked up at Decker and said. Avoid? Me? He clenched his fist, making a cracking sound. Why would I avoid it when I've finally returned? Zeke's eyes flashed. There are a lot of people I need to repay. Zeke walked down the desolate hallway towards the circular arena where the year-end evaluation was held. He looked around as he walked. It's exactly the same as my memories. So suffocating. Shields bearing the Draker clan crest were hung throughout the hallway. A dragon with a chain around its neck and a sword piercing its heart. It was the Draker clan crest, called the Dragon Slayer emblem. Zeke frowned at the sight of the crest. To think I'd see this again alive. To Zeke, the Draker clan was both a trauma and an object of undeniable yearning. A wall he couldn't overcome. He had thought that if he gained the strongest power on the continent, he could completely erase the shadow of the Drakers. Perhaps that was why he had struggled so desperately. He roughly pushed open the door at the end of the hallway and entered. Thud. The circular arena was already filled with children of Zeke's age. They were all wrapping leather straps around their hands for Pancration, one of the year-end evaluation events. The gathered children murmured at Zeke's appearance. He ignored them and looked around the arena. It was a strange feeling to be back in the Pancration arena after so long. Brings back memories. As a child, Zeke hated Pancration. He was small and weak for a direct descendant of the Draker clan. The young blood relatives of the Draker clan, regardless of whether they were from the direct or collateral line, began living together at the age of 7. And in the communal living area called the Cradle, strict rules, disciplined life, and harsh training continued for 5 years. They received basic training in swordsmanship, hand-to-hand combat, and physical training before the blessing ceremony, and one of the most important training events was Pancration. Pancration in the Draker clan was a no-rules competition close to actual combat. There were many injuries, but it didn't matter because they had the highest grade healing potions on hand. This was something only the Draker clan could do in the entire continent. Phew. Zeke took a deep breath and stretched his muscles. The other children, unfamiliar with Zeke acting like this, glanced at him. It was then. Oh, what brings you out today instead of running away? Zeke turned his head to see a red-haired boy with freckles standing there. Behind him stood 2 large boys with broad shoulders, boasting arrogant postures. Who is he? Then he realized who the boy was. It's you. Leon Conrad. The red-haired boy's face turned crimson, and he gritted his teeth. Leon grabbed Zeke's shoulder and said menacingly. You recessive gene bastard, are you crazy? It was then. Grab. Zeke grabbed Leon's wrist tightly. Crack. Leon's eyes widened, and he shook off Zeke's hand that was gripping his wrist. Glaring at Zeke, Leon shouted. How dare you? Do you want to die, you recessive gene bastard? Zeke looked at Leon with a calm gaze and thought. Should I kill him? Zeke had been through all sorts of hardships while wandering the continent before his regression. Killing a 12-year-old kid who hadn't even awakened his aura was nothing to him. As Leon fumed in front of Zeke, the other children quietly watched the situation. It was then. Ding! The bell signaling the evaluation rang. Zeke clicked his tongue as he watched Leon retreat. He remembered how Leon had constantly bullied him during their time in the cradle and the academy. Leon comrade. That damn bastard was also one of my cousins. Zeke had 4 siblings and over 10 cousins. Except for the direct descendants, whom he rarely met, most of his cousins were annoying incarnations of the Drakers. As Zeke reminisced, the instructor stepped onto the arena. At his appearance, the children lined up in front of the circular arena. Their movements were surprisingly swift for 12-year-olds. Zeke recalled the instructor's name. Pan Mark. He was the instructor in charge of this batch. Pan Mark, standing in the arena, shouted. This year's evaluation, like last year, will consist of pancration and sword fighting. The children tensed and focused at Pan's words. The evaluation at the cradle was linked to class assignments at the academy they would enter next year. After the blessing ceremony, the trainees would awaken their aura and enter the academy as Yellow Knights. And they would be assigned to classes based on the year-end evaluation they received at the cradle. The higher the class, the more opportunities they had to learn higher-level Dragon Slayer techniques, so the children couldn't help but be obsessed with their scores. Zeke clicked his tongue, witnessing the fierce competition again after 20 years. How did I survive here before? Zeke was physically and mentally weak as a child. The cradle and the academy were nothing short of hell for him in his childhood. As Zeke reminisced, Pan Mark called out the first evaluators. Aaron. Gata. Aaron and Gata stepped onto the arena. Gata was one of the large boys who had been standing behind Leon. Both of them were well built and seemed to be in a similar weight class. Pan blew the whistle. Beep. Aaron and Gata lowered their stances and glared at each other. A moment later, Gata lunged first, trying to grab Aaron's leg. Aaron quickly changed direction and grabbed Gata's waist. Aaron lifted Gata's body and threw him over. Thud. Gata, slammed onto the arena floor, got up angrily. You commoner bastard. Aaron, with a relaxed expression, took his stance. Gata attempted a few more attacks, but they were all blocked by Aaron's defense. The match ended anticlimactically with Aaron's victory. Zeke watched Aaron and Gata's match with a bored expression. Maybe it's because it's a kid's fight. It's so clumsy. He used to hate pancration with a passion. But now, it looked like child's play. Seeing Zeke yawning widely, Leon, who was standing opposite him, glared at him with murderous eyes. After a few more matches, Pan Mark called out the next contestants. Zeke. And. Pan hesitated for a moment before speaking. Leon. Come forward. Judging from Leon's excited expression, it seemed like he had talked to the instructor beforehand. The Draker clan outwardly presented themselves as a noble knightly family, but behind the scenes, all sorts of schemes and tricks were rampant. And they said that only those who could overcome schemes and tricks were true Dragon Slayers. Leon stepped into the arena and slammed his fists together. Zeke trudged into the arena listlessly. Leon looked at Zeke and said, Recessive gene bastard, you're dead today. Zeke looked at Leon and said, Hey. Leon looked at his fist and then looked up at Zeke. If you say recessive gene one more time, I'll really kill you. Leon flinched at the murderous intent he felt from Zeke. Realizing that he was momentarily intimidated by Zeke, Leon shouted even louder. You recessive. Whoosh. At that moment, Zeke's fist cut through the air. Wham. Leon felt as if half of his face had disappeared. He collapsed onto the arena floor. Gasp. In my face. Leon clutched his face as he fell. Zeke recalled the message that had appeared when he punched Leon in the face. Skill critical strike activated. So this is how the active skills are activated. Beep. The whistle blew. Pan Mark shouted at Zeke. What are you doing before the match even started? Zeke looked at Pan and said. Does anyone say start? Before stabbing someone on the battlefield? The one who strikes first wins. Pan was surprised by Zeke's harsh tone. He's always running away, and now suddenly. Leon got up, fuming. Instructor. Start again. I'll kill that recessive gene bastard. Pan hesitated for a moment, then blew the whistle again. Match starts. Leon took his stance and charged at Zeke. That lucky punch must have landed by chance. This time, I'll break his arms and legs completely. Leon was small, but he had a talent for pancration. Even bigger kids couldn't keep up with Leon's fighting sense and often ended up with dislocated shoulders. Moreover, he was known for his ruthlessness, refusing to stop even when his opponent tapped out, and would break their arms and legs. So other children were often passive when facing him. Again, Leon, filled with confidence, lowered his stance and charged at Zeke. But Zeke, who was standing still, showed no openings, unlike usual. What's this? And at that moment, Zeke's left hand moved. Whack. Zeke's jab, which shouldn't have reached him, struck Leon's face. This bastard. Every time Leon charged, Zeke's jab would fly. Whack. Ugh. It was a light jab, but his fist was wrapped tightly with leather straps, so every hit tore his skin and made his head ring. Leon guarded his face and closed in on Zeke, grabbing his waist. Gotcha, you bastard. All he had to do was take him down and break his joints. He tried to throw Zeke over his back, but strangely, Zeke didn't budge. What the? Zeke whispered in Leon's ear. I told you. If you say recessive one more time, I'll kill you. Leon, goosebumps erupting all over his body, hurriedly tried to back away. Whoosh. But Zeke, in close range, kicked Leon's thigh. Ugh. It was a heavy blow, unexpected from a low kick in such an unstable position. As Leon's balance faltered, Zeke hooked his leg inward and tripped him. Thud. As Leon fell, Zeke slammed his elbow into his ribs. Skill-precise stab activated. Cough. With his ribs broken, Leon couldn't breathe. Zeke mounted Leon, pinning one of his arms with his leg and pressing his knee on the other shoulder. Zeke, in a mounted position, made a fist and looked down at Leon. Then he punched Leon in the face. Skill mutilate activated. Wham. 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 Zeke's fists pounded relentlessly on Leon's face. Gah, gah. Stop. Despite Leon's pleas, Zeke's fists didn't stop. Leon, struggling, eventually fainted from Zeke's merciless beating. Only then did Zeke slowly get up. You're nothing but a little punk. The waiting paramedics rushed in and dragged the unconscious Leon out of the arena. Zeke, who had turned Leon into a bloody mess in an instant, returned to his seat. The other children exchanged glances, trying to grasp the situation after Zeke's sudden change. Then Zeke's voice rang out. You guys, I can hear your eyeballs rolling. The children's eyes uniformly focused on Zeke. Zeke chuckled and continued. Now that I've worked up a sweat, my head is finally working. I'm starting to recognize who's who. The children just stared at Zeke silently, unable to understand what he was saying. If you have something to say, come and say it. Stop rolling your eyes around. It was then. Instructor. A boy with a sharp, 3 wide-eyed gaze raised his hand. PR/N, 3 wide eye refers to more of the white part of the eye showing either above or below the iris. Can I choose Zeke as my opponent for the evaluation? Zeke recognized the boy who raised his hand. I remember. His name was, that's right. Jakin Vardek. Another cousin has appeared. At Jakin's words, Pan turned to Zeke. Zeke, what will you do? Zeke thought for a moment and then stood up. Sure, why not, let's sweat a little more. But. He pointed at Jakin and said. It's too boring with just you alone. Zeke pointed at the boy sitting next to Jakin. Liam Stone. The boy who had been sitting silently next to Jakin quietly raised his head. Zeke looked at him and said. Both of you, come at me together. Zeke grinned. That seems a bit more balanced. Jakin's eyes narrowed at Zeke's words. Are you insulting me? Zeke nodded in response. Yeah, that's right. I'm insulting you. Jakin trembled with anger and clenched his fists. Zeke said. So what are you going to do? Do it if you want to. Otherwise, I'm leaving. Jakin, trying to suppress his anger, looked at Pan, the instructor. Is this all right, instructor? Pan hesitated for a moment, then nodded. If Zeke is okay with it, I don't mind. With permission granted, Jakin and Liam stepped onto the arena. Zeke stood opposite Jakin and Liam with a relaxed expression. He looked at Liam standing next to Jakin. It's strange seeing him here again. Liam Stone. In the future, he was one of the most famous people in the Central Continent. The mercenary king, Liam. Unlike the Conrad or Vardek clans, who were blood related to the Drakers, Liam was a very distant relative among the Drakers' collateral lineage. Despite that, the reason he was in the cradle was that he had been chosen as Jakin Vardek's attendant. In Zeke's memory, Liam would receive the blessing of Aura here and enter the academy, but he wouldn't be able to enter Valhalla, the higher educational institution. He was abandoned midway because of his low birth. Liam, who wandered around as a free knight, was able to join the Knights of Barnan, a small country in the western region. He could have ended his life peacefully as an ordinary knight, but when Barnan was destroyed by the Empire, the knights he belonged to disappeared. With nowhere to go, he became a mercenary and wandered the continent. Then, by chance, he attained enlightenment and became a Red Knight. People gather around those who are strong. Moreover, it was a chaotic time, so there was no shortage of mercenaries. Thus, the Stone Mercenary Corps was formed, centered around Liam, the Red Knight, and a few years later, he united the three major mercenary corps of the continent and earned the title of Mercenary King in the Central Continent. Zeke felt a strange sensation seeing the taciturn boy standing next to Jakin, the future Mercenary King. We were enemies in my past life, but this life could be different. Just then, Pan blew the whistle. Match starts. Jakin took his stance and approached Zeke. But Liam, who was behind him, didn't move and just stood still. Zeke frowned and said to Jakin, "I clearly said both of you should attack me together." Jakin scoffed. "I was just playing along with your childish game earlier." Jakin lunged forward with a powerful high kick towards Zeke. Thud. It was a powerful impact, unbelievable for a 12-year-old's kick. Everyone thought Zeke would collapse from a single kick from Jakin. Ugh. But contrary to expectations, it was Jakin who groaned and stepped back. Jakin's ankle, which had delivered the kick, was swollen. Zeke said as he lowered his left elbow. "Why are you throwing yourself at my elbow?" Jakin tried to regain his balance, but his ankle seemed to be completely broken, making it difficult for him to stand. "Damn it, if this happens, I'll have to take him down with a mount." Just as Jakin was about to charge, Zeke struck first. Whoosh. Zeke delivered a low kick to Jakin's injured leg. Crack. Ugh. Jakin's face contorted in pain as he was hit on his injured leg, and his balance faltered. It was then. Whoosh. Zeke spun around, rotating his whole body, and thrust his fist into Jakin's side. Wham! Skill critical strike activated. With its full rotational force, the critical strike shattered all of Jakin's ribs. Ugh! Jakin gasped and collapsed to his knees. Zeke, catching his breath, shouted at Liam, who was standing behind. "Are you just going to keep standing there?" Liam glanced at Jakin, who was gasping for breath. Jakin, his face pale, shouted. "Cough! Liam! Kill that bastard!" At Jakin's shout, Liam stepped forward. As Liam stepped forward, Zeke finally took a proper fighting stance for the first time. But, is he really 12 years old? He looked at least 5 years older than his peers, with his unusually long limbs and taciturn expression. Zeke was wary of Liam's long arms. Even when we fought in my past life, I was troubled by the reach of those long arms. If he gave Liam the initiative, the flow of the fight could shift completely. Shing! Zeke dashed forward and threw a jab. Whack! He circled Liam, striking his guard with jabs. Whack! 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 His sharp jabs, like awls, penetrated Liam's guard. Zeke's movements, stepping with quick footwork and throwing jabs back and forth, weren't typical Pancration techniques. What's that? The other trainees murmured at the unfamiliar technique. Pan, the instructor, was also surprised to see Zeke's technique. That's the boxing technique used by the Northern Rangers? It was rare to see a Northern Continent fighting technique in the Central Continent, where swordsmanship was the focus. Wham! 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 Even as the onlookers murmured, Liam remained crouched, silently blocking Zeke's jabs. Then, Zeke's step faltered slightly, and his jab missed. Liam's eyes gleamed. Whoosh! In an instant, Liam extended his long arm and wrapped it around Zeke's jab as if to snatch it. Heave-ho! Liam quickly wrapped his arm around Zeke's, attempting to lift and throw him. This was possible because of the significant size difference between Zeke and Liam. Zeke, caught in Liam's grasp and in danger of being thrown, quickly twisted his body in midair. Then, using his small physique to his advantage, he wrapped both legs around Liam's arm and twisted the joint. Crack! Before Liam could react, his shoulder was dislocated, and his elbow twisted. Aakak! Liam, his joint broken, collapsed onto the arena floor. Zeke didn't stop at breaking Liam's arm. He released his legs from Liam's arm and wrapped them around his neck. Gasp! Zeke's legs tightened around Liam's carotid artery. Liam didn't tap out until the very end. In the Draker clan, tapping out was a greater dishonor than death or injury. Eventually, Liam lost consciousness. Phew! Zeke released his hold on the unconscious Liam's neck and stood up. All eyes were on Zeke, who had effortlessly defeated Jakin and Liam. Zeke pointed at one person among the 100 trainees as he met their gazes. Owen Siemens. A mature-looking boy with brown hair met Zeke's gaze with a calm expression. Zeke shifted his gaze and pointed to another person. Raina Turin. A girl with a sharp gaze and closely cropped hair glared at Zeke. Zeke turned his gaze and pointed at the fallen Jakin. Jakin Vardek, Leon Conrad, are out, so moving on. Zeke addressed the trainees. Tell your families. Zeke Draker is a little different now. With those words, Zeke stepped down from the arena. Owen and Raina watched Zeke walk away in silence, and Zeke clicked his tongue at the sight. Are those the eyes of 12-year-olds? Zeke, descending from the arena, left with all eyes on him. Pan, who had been staring blankly at Zeke's retreating figure, finally came to his senses and declared. Zeke! Winner! The collapsed Jakin and Liam were taken to the infirmary, and the year-end evaluation continued. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Phew. Returning to his room, Zeke threw off his clothes and collapsed onto the bed. His whole body ached from overexerting himself. Those bastards. They'll have a headache trying to figure this out. In his past life, he couldn't awaken his aura and was treated like trash in the cradle and the academy before being abandoned by the clan. Zeke gritted his teeth, remembering the misery of that time vividly. Those cousins must be busy reporting by now. There were 4 cousins who had joined the same year as Zeke. Some, like Leon, directly pressured Zeke, but most just watched him from afar. However, even the cousins who had been observing Zeke from a distance wouldn't be able to stay silent after witnessing his transformation today. It was obvious that their families would give them orders. I can't just sit still and wait. I'll take the initiative and divert their attention. It was easier to hide in moderately dirty water than in perfectly clean water. That was the reason he deliberately revealed his strength in the year-end evaluation today. His fighting skills were only a small part of his abilities, so there was no problem in revealing this much. Zeke got out of bed and stood up. While those guys are busy scheming, I just need to steadily build up my strength. He had no intention of being bullied like in his past life. In this life, he was going to devour the Draker clan whole. Zeke quietly opened his mouth. Status window open. Low-rank administrator status window. Name, Zeke Draker. Class, Healer, Rare. Title, Blessed by the Ancient Dragon. Skills held, Healing/Composed Mind/Health Regeneration/ Heightened Senses. Active skills, Precise Stab, E rank, Beginner/Mutilate, E rank, Expert/Critical Strike, D rank, Beginner. Draconian skills, unavailable 10 karma points required to unlock. Karma points held, 0. The Mutilate skill has changed from Beginner to Expert. He didn't know the exact principle, but it seemed like the level of the skills changed the more he used them. Looking at the status window, Zeke tilted his head at the karma section. What are karma points? Karma points were required to unlock the unavailable draconian skills. But karma was a term he had never heard before. Zeke pressed karma points, just in case. Karma points. Karma points can be obtained by killing monsters. You can get points by killing monsters? The first thing Zeke did after being expelled from the family was to become a dungeon porter. He had followed low-level adventurers, going back and forth between dungeons where dangerous monsters appeared. Zeke read the explanation again. Monsters with mana. The monsters in the dungeon lived in groups, so to hunt them alone, one needed to be at least a purple knight, capable of wielding aura. Zeke closed the status window and fell into thought. To obtain karma points, I need to have at least the skills of a purple knight. Zeke's current state, with only his ether hall opened, could be classified as a yellow knight, a rank above a white knight. He could be promoted to a purple knight after awakening his aura, opening his lower dantian, and imbuing his sword with aura. From this stage onwards, the title used was no longer swordsman but knight. Only after mastering aura and creating an aura blade from the sword could one be promoted to blue knight and be recognized as a true knight, earning a title. And those among the blue knights who broke through the wall and advanced to the next level were the red knights. Commanders of large kingdoms or empires are typically red knights. Therefore, the military strength of a nation is often gauged by the number of red and blue knights it possesses. However, there are those who defy this common sense. Superhumans who surpass the realm of humans, a rare few even on the continent. They are the Black Knights, also known as one-man armies. Even across the entire continent, the number of Black Knights was so small that they could be counted individually. Surprisingly, the Draker clan had 5 such Black Knights. With 5 Black Knights, each capable of wiping out a small kingdom on their own, no one dared to oppose the Draker clan. Not even the Emperor. There's a reason why they're called one of the 3 transcendent families. The Dragonslayer Draker clan. The Mystic Arts Ishtar clan. And the magic-wielding Nirvana clan. They didn't belong to any country and were recognized for their independence, unbound by any laws. But in the future Zeke had seen, a great change would occur in this 3-way power structure. It was about 10 years from now, I think. He had to prepare and grow stronger before the time of change. I don't know why I regress to the past, or what this system is. Zeke's eyes gleamed. If I can become stronger, I will use anything. It was then. Knock, knock. Zeke shouted towards the door. Come in. The door opened and Decker, a servant who looked more like a knight than an actual knight, entered. This was one of the main facilities of the Dragon Slayer family, a family of knights among knights. Even a single sword in the warehouse wasn't made carelessly. It's still not as good as the one I used before. Actually, the claymore Zeke used in his past life was a special sword, so it couldn't be compared in the first place. Knowing this, he suppressed his regret and took a stance, holding the claymore with both hands. Phew. In his past life, he could easily swing even heavier swords, but with a child's body, even holding it was a burden. Zeke slowly swung the claymore. Thud. Unable to handle the weight of the sword, the tip of the sword crashed into the floor of the training ground. Zeke lifted the claymore again. It's difficult without using it. He closed his eyes and focused on his ether hall. A warm energy flowed from his solar plexus and spread throughout his body. A cultivation technique that utilized mana, the pure energy of nature, not aura or magic. It was originally a technique that humans couldn't learn. Zeke, having spread mana throughout his body, swung the claymore again. Whoosh. His movements were much better than before. He fixed his lower body and repeated the basic swinging motion. Whoosh. 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 With each swing, the sword felt more familiar, and the sound of cutting through the air rang out. Then, at some point, even the sound of cutting through the air disappeared. Zeke put down the sword. Ugh. I need to build up my stamina first. I'll collapse from exhaustion swinging this sword. As an adult, Zeke had a solid physique of over 180 centimeters, with flexible and resilient muscles filling his entire body. On the other hand, he was barely over 160 centimeters now, with a small physique and almost no muscles. If it weren't for the combat skills and awakened skills he learned in his past life, he wouldn't have been able to overpower his cousins in Pancratium. Zeke clicked his tongue, looking at his aching body after swinging the sword a few times. Really, my body was complete trash when I was young. He decided to use his secret technique. Healing. Light spread throughout his body, and the pain in his aching muscles disappeared. Zeke lifted his healed arm and, with a satisfied expression, grabbed the sword again. This was how Zeke utilized healing in his past life. He used to overwork his muscles, heal them with healing, and then overwork them again, strengthening his muscle fibers several times more than others. Through this training method, Zeke was able to cut down opponents larger than himself and even higher-ranking knights. It was a harsh training method that was impossible without extraordinary mental strength and willpower. 1 week. It's a bit tight, but I'll have to adapt somehow. He swung the claymore again and again without rest. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. A week had passed since the Pancratium evaluation. During that week, Zeke's performance became a hot topic among the trainees. Zeke, who had been seen as weak, unlike a direct descendant of the Draker clan, showed a completely different side of himself in this year-end evaluation. Some of the trainees even speculated that Zeke might be using an evil power obtained through black magic. And finally, the day of the swordsmanship duel, the last event of the year-end evaluation, arrived. Mealtimes were fixed at the cradle. Since the training was harsh, the meals were well prepared with a balance of nutrients. Especially breakfast, which was prepared as a buffet, allowed the trainees to eat as much as they wanted. Next to the common dining area used by ordinary trainees, there was a separate dining room that only the children of prominent families within the Draker Blood Alliance could enter. Unlike the ordinary meals focused on nutrition, luxurious dishes were set on the tables there. Owen, Reyna, Jakin, and Leon were sitting at the prepared round table. The servants placed the food each of their masters wanted in front of them. Owen picked up his knife and fork and gracefully cut the plain fish dish into bite-sized pieces. On the other hand, a whole steak was placed in front of Reyna. She cut a large piece of the bloody steak and put it in her mouth, chewing. It was a hearty meal befitting the heir of the Turin clan, known for having the strongest physique among all the clans. Jakin and Leon didn't touch the food and just sat still. Seeing them like that, Owen said, "Even if you don't have an appetite, you should eat something. You need a full stomach for the swordsmanship duel this afternoon." At those words, Leon looked up and glared at Owen. "Are you picking a fight?" Owen shook his head with an indifferent expression. There's no point in talking to someone who doesn't know how to accept kindness. Leon jumped to his feet. "How dare you?" Just then, Reyna, who had almost finished her steak, looked up and glared at Leon. Leon flinched at her stare and slowly sat back down. Jakin, who had been silent, opened his mouth. "So, what are we going to do?" Owen, Reyna, and Leon looked up at his words. They all knew what Jakin was talking about. "Zeke Draker," Owen said as he wiped his mouth. "Well, I don't know if it was a fluke or what, but he won't be able to do much with swordsmanship." He continued with a cold glint in his eyes. "We'll find out today what else Zeke is hiding." Reyna, having devoured her entire steak, abruptly stood up. She raised the sword that had been leaning against her chair and declared. Did that truly seem like a fluke to you? Her words drew Owen's attention. Reyna looked at the three still seated at the table and said. You are not worthy of becoming Draker Knights. With that, she strode out of the dining hall. That arrogant bitch. Leon slammed his hand on the table, trembling with rage. Owen tapped the table with his fingers, his mind racing. Reyna and Zeke. This could get interesting. A genius who awakened her aura at the age of 10, before the blessing ceremony. It seemed Reyna Turin had found her prey.